Excited to hear what you have to say, Christina.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. I'm not really great on Zoom, so we're going to see if I can share. Actually, I think all I have to do is click this.
Yep,
No.
perfect.
Yes. You guys can.
Yes, you
Everybody
did
else,
it.
please mute your audio and blank your video.
Okay. So this is your fancy poster. And this image that's in this poster is actually one of the images that I received an award for, and that was published. And this location is actually just 2 blocks away from my studio, that my portrait studio that's in downtown Midland. This fancy bridge is known as the Tridge, and it's because it has 3 legs. There's 3 different rivers that come together here, and this connects 3 different pieces of land over the river. And where you see the little red bench in the center with the light above it, that's all over the water. There's no land under that. So that's the center of the Tridge. And I'll talk more about this image throughout the presentation for you guys because I get a ton of questions on this one. So this is one of my favorite quotes, you guys. I will love the light for it shows me the way. Yeah, I will love the darkness for it shows me the stars, which is from Agmandino. And for me as a photographer, and especially a photographer of the night sky, I absolutely love this quote because as photographers, we're always capturing the light. But when you're in the darkness capturing the light, capturing the stars, it's a whole different thing, right? And the aurora itself. This aurora image here is one that I captured while I was in Alaska, which was a dream trip for me. I knew I wanted to see the aurora in Alaska, and that one I actually took 2 Septembers ago. So what you guys will find out is that every photographer has a why, and these 3 are my whys. And I think this is what caught Ellen's attention when we were at imaging, because for me, I started my photography adventure when I was just young and I was a child. I didn't have this great upbringing. It started out kind of normal, and then I went through the whole childhood divorce thing. And I lived in a community where there wasn't a lot of support for that at that time in the world. And we didn't have a lot of money. I wanted to capture and freeze time because my world was falling apart. And so I had all of these little the disposable cameras. And that's how I started photography, was disposable cameras. I didn't get to choose anything. The camera did everything for me, and you had to send in the film and wait for it to come back and hope you actually got something right. And I joined journalism in high school, and I got to write stories, and I was able to do the yearbook editing, but I never was able to step into the darkroom. And so then after high school, when I had my first baby, who is that guy in the varsity jacket on the left, I found out that my little point and shoot cameras that I had bought, they didn't work. He would move and everything would blur. And so I went to the local camera shop and I talked to the guy who owned it, and he's like, we're going to get you into a Nikon. And so I had my first digital camera. It's a Nikon D40, and it's over on my shelf over there. And so that one worked perfectly until I was chasing him on the playground, and we went down a slide and there was a tunnel, and that was on my neck. My camera was on my neck and I broke it. So I had to go back and get a D90, which now he has at college at the University of Michigan. He was about 6 years old, and I was pregnant for twins, and I got put on bed rest. During that time, I had opened a photo studio. People had started going, oh, wow, you take these amazing pictures. Please take my pictures. And you guys, I was that photographer that I had no clue. I was clicking the button. The camera did the job. I did not know how I was taking the picture. And it was such a disservice to people. And but I did it. I had a photo studio, and I started, learning, how am I taking these pictures? Because if I'm going to charge, I need to know. So I started taking classes, and I did get a degree, and I opened a studio, and eventually I knew what I was doing. And then I became pregnant with my twins, and I got put on bed rest, and I put my camera on a shelf, and it was supposed to come back off the shelf. But as you can see, one of my twins didn't grow up, and she actually passed away at 18 months old. And so the guy in the middle, he's my little guy that took my puppy out. He's now 12 years old, and he's amazing. And his twin sister, she's forever 18 months. And so I put my camera on that shelf and I didn't take it back down for quite a while. And I have two friends that were photographers that called me and they said, hey, we need you to pack up your gear. We need you to pack up your stuff. We're going on a trip. And I'm like, I'm not taking pictures. And they're like, we're not going to take pictures of people. We're going to take pictures of stars. And I was kind of intrigued, and I'm like, I don't know if my camera can do that. And my husband loves me, and he bought me a fancy Nikon D850. And so we went to the UP, not quite to where Ellen was talking about in Houghton, but we went to the UP. We went to a little place called Curtis, and we met up with a local photographer who was from Marquette. And she taught us how to photograph the Milky Way and how to forecast the aurora, but we never saw it. And so we were like, okay, well, we're going to try again. So 2 months later, we got in the car and we were starting to drive to Minnesota to meet with Mike Shaw. If you don't know Mike Shaw, he is a college professor and he's an author of night sky photography. And he's very much an award-winning, published photographer of all kinds of astrophotography. He's amazing. We drove up through the Upper Peninsula and we stayed in Marquette. And at 2:30 in the morning, my friend woke me up and said, hey, it's a KP6, let's go. I had no idea what that meant. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And I saw my first aurora and photographed my first aurora. And so this is not award-winning photography, you guys. I had no idea what I was doing again. I was not a night photographer, but I had been pulled out of my depression and given a camera and said, hey guys, we're going to do this. And so that was my very first Milky Way image. And that was my very first aurora. And my friend was telling me, look in the distance. Do you see? Do you see? And I kept saying, no, I don't see. And so she said, just click the button. And that's what I got when I clicked the button. I will never delete this image. It is not a technically correct image. It is not a beautiful image, but it is an image that means the world to me, that I will keep forever because I can remember every second of seeing that aurora for the first time. And it will be something I treasure forever. And that's when I was bit by the aurora bug. And so that was almost 12 years or almost 10 years ago. And at the time, there were not so many photographers that were capturing aurora. There were not so many people that were going out. In Michigan right now, we have so many people going out. So many people that are capturing it. There were not that many. So it was hard to learn. And the data just wasn't something that you could follow. So it's different now. And this is everything I want to teach you guys about why I do aurora, how to do aurora, and how to forecast aurora and how to capture aurora. So tonight we're going to learn about the science of aurora, what causes aurora. You're going to learn how to forecast it a little bit, some useful aurora tools, how to photograph the aurora with equipment that's required or suggested, and then how to plan the capture of aurora and settings to do that. All of this is just like the tip of the aurora pillar or like the iceberg. This is not going to be everything. You surely don't have enough time for that, but I'm always available if you have questions beyond what you hear from me tonight. So another quote, guys, there's an exception to every rule, an outlier to every statistic. The world is not black and white, and I am so thankful that we live in full color. Okay, so that is to say that I might tell you this is what is typical of aurora forecasting or photographing aurora. That does not mean that that is the only way, the only rule. There's definitely going to be other things that happen. So, and I can tell you times that I've found rules broken before. Okay, so we're going into the science, guys, and this is a very simplified diagram of how this works, okay? So if you look at this diagram, everything that causes aurora comes from the sun. It's solar activity, okay? And there's various forms of solar activity. You have solar winds, you have solar flares. These different solar winds and solar flares cause different activities to happen. Those fly off the sun, they come towards the earth. They still have to penetrate the earth's magnetic field, and they have to get into the earth to create the aurora. That's simplified, very simplified, okay? We're going to get into it a little bit more here. So the types of solar activity that we monitor as chasers is going to be your solar winds, your solar flares, your coronal mass ejections, and your coronal holes, okay? Solar winds are always present. And they're always coming off of the sun. They're always coming into the poles, your North Pole and your South Pole, to an extent. That's why you'll hear, if you're in Fairbanks and there's clear skies and it's dark, just look up, the aurora's there, okay? You can have very little auroral activity or solar activity, and you're going to have aurora in Fairbanks if it's dark and if the skies are clear. Solar flare. This is an image of a solar flare. You're going to see a video that I have on here that'll show you what it actually looks like when the flare happens. A solar flare is just an intense burst of radiation coming from the release of magnetic energy associated with sunspots. So where you see those very bright spots on the sun there, those are all sunspots. And at any point in time, they're building all of that energy, and the sun can just burst out that energy into a solar flare. I don't know if any of you guys remember back into May of 2024, and you hear about the huge X flares that happened, right? And people were like, oh my goodness, we have an X flare, we're going to have huge aurora. And we did. But let me time you out and tell you, a solar flare in and of itself will not cause aurora, okay? It can help aurora happen, but it will not cause aurora to happen. So hold on to that for a minute, and then we'll come back to that. So this is a video playing up here. You'll see the solar flare happen. You can see the energy building. Did you see it pop? I'll play it again for you guys so you can see. Right in here is where you'll see it fly out on that lower kind of left area. And that's where the flare happens. So that flare actually takes just 8 minutes to go from the sun to the earth. So if it only took a solar flare to create aurora, we would have that aurora within 8 minutes. And that's why you need more than just a solar flare, okay, right? So we measure solar flares in different classes. And this slide is going to tell you all about the measurements. There's, your B class, your C class, your M class, your X class. Each of those classes have 10 different levels inside of them. So say your C and your M class, they're going to be 10 levels away from each other. So it's pretty big. And I will give you guys these slides so you can look back to them as well. Your X flare is your biggest. So when you hear we have an X9, that's a pretty big flare. That's a lot of light that just came, okay? Now, are we moving? There we go. If you have a solar flare with a coronal mass ejection, then it's potential that you will have aurora. You still might not. There's some things that could cause you to not, and I'll tell you what those are. But a coronal mass ejection is a huge cloud of hot plasma that's expelled from the sun. Think of it like the sun is sneezing, right? When you look at the sun, I don't know how many of you guys have done like the eclipse, but you'll see, if you look at the sun, you'll see all of the little gases that come out from the sun. Those little gases, they'll come out like a loop, and I'll show you a picture of one here in a minute and a video of one. So that it's like the sun is sneezing out that plasma, and in that plasma is all of this material, protons, electrons that are going to come shooting, hopefully at the earth. If you have that CME that comes, that coronal mass ejection that comes towards the earth, you could potentially have aurora. If it doesn't come towards the earth, we're not going to get aurora. If it comes towards the earth and it doesn't quite make it to us, it fizzles out, we're not going to have aurora. If it comes towards the earth and maybe bounces off or deflects somewhere else, we're not going to have aurora. So there's a lot of ifs on making sure that gets to us to get that aurora. This is an image from SOHO, which is one of the satellites, and I'll go over what those satellites are for you guys. And you can see on the right hand of this image, This is actually from the May solar flares that happened. There was a solar flare and then there was a CME. This is the CME, and this was on May 8th. That was that CME that came out. So this image, this satellite image, it's like taking a disc over and putting over the sun and being able to see all of the activity that's happening on the outskirts of that disc. So you're not blinding yourself by the sun, right? So that's the activity that's coming out from the sun. This is that coronal mass ejection that's coming out over here. And what you're looking for is a halo. Some people say a partial halo. You're looking for that full halo to come out and shoot out. And I did not share, I only shared my slides. So I'm going to have to play this video for you afterwards, but I have a video of this and it's on a different page. So I'll come back and share that for you guys afterwards. That'll show the full video slide for you guys of what that looks like. But there's a place that you can go, and I have that link for you where you can go actually see that if you are interested in watching how this stuff happens. I'm kind of a data nerd, so I do watch this stuff. A lot of my friends here are, not everybody is, so, and that's okay. All right, the last solar activity is a coronal hole. And these are areas of open magnetic field from which solar wind particles stream into space. So as the sun rotates, it's a 27-day rotation. As it rotates, you're going to see these holes, and they change constantly. They're closing, they're opening. It's not an actual hole, but what it is it's a dark spot. It's a weakened spot in the field that allows that solar wind to travel at a much higher rate and push those protons and electrons at a more dense and faster speed, which creates higher solar winds that can then come into our magnetic field if all the conditions are right. So that is another potential way that you guys can then see the aurora. Okay, so those are the few things that we're looking for in terms of solar activity. Okay, so this is a video of the rotation and showing how those holes will come in and out of field, and you'll hear them talk about the west limb or the east limb of the sun, and if that hole is going to actually be earth facing or if it's off on the limb. And so that wind, if it's off on like the west limb and it's not completely earth facing, that wind might not actually hit the earth. We may not get aurora from that. Okay. These are some of my images from the last couple of years, some of my favorites from the last couple of years, favorite storms, that kind of thing. That just shows you different types of aurora, because when you're looking at aurora, you're also looking at every aurora has a different type of a structure as well. And we're actually learning that there's more structure than we realize. So some of the different groups that I'm a part of are doing studies showing whether or not there's fragmentations, or you'll hear about steves. I didn't put a steve up here. I thought I did, but I did not. So on the left side, this was a pretty big storm. This was March 23rd, 2023. I was in the tip of the thumb at the Point O'Barks Lighthouse in Port Hope, Michigan, which is, trying to think right now of the biggest town it's near like Bad Axe. You guys probably don't know any of these towns anyhow, that's okay. But that was pillars, and that was being in like a snow globe of aurora. There was snow on the ground. I laid on the ground. I could look straight up and see what we called corona overhead, which is when you see like the angel, where the aurora looks like angels and angel wings over top of you. The second one is 20 minutes from my house. This is Bay City State Park. And this is one of the early phases of aurora, which you can see in some of the other pictures I'll pull up in a minute. This is where we'll actually just see an arc forming. And this is in the very earliest stages of aurora building. The third one, this is the one that you guys all saw, the Midland Ridge, and I'll show you a succession of some images here in a bit that show you where it started from the arc to the point of explosion, and then back to the rebuild phase. And then the last one, that's the secret sky barn. Unfortunately, that was after the sky barn lights went down. It was about 1:30 in the morning. I had gone to photograph a client's Airbnb building. They have a schoolhouse that they rent out, and I went to photograph that with Aurora for them. And by the time I was done with that and came here, all the lights were out, but it still was one of my favorites. And that is called diffuse aurora, which is, it's either prior to the arc or after the whole storm is done, and it kind of diffuses out. So where does all the data come from? So there's satellites. The satellites are in the sky. They're there not for aurora chasers. They're there to protect and monitor infrastructure. They're ran by NASA. They're ran by the ESA. What they're there for is when this radiation, when solar activity happens and it's at a certain level, it can actually knock out communications for flight travel, for air travel, for ships, for military communications. It can knock out electrical grids. It can be an issue for if you have astronauts out into space and it's a certain level of radiation, they cannot be in that area. It's not intended for aurora chasers to forecast the aurora. It never was intended for us, but we've learned how to use it. And we've gotten pretty good at it. And I'll tell you, from the time I started aurora chasing to now, the information has just gotten so massive. We have studied, we have learned, and it just, from year to year, it's like it's growing twice as much. It's amazing what they're learning at this point. This year, we're actually going to put the first satellite into space that is specifically for aurora data. And I know the aurora community is really looking forward to this. It'll be the first time that a satellite has been put out there specifically for us. So there's 3 satellites. The first one, you might hear people say, we're waiting for L1 data, and that's SOHO. And this one is the one that you just saw those images from. They capture images of events. Light events are near real time, so that's where you saw the solar flares, and that light travels at the speed of light. Analysis happens within about an hour, sometimes less. And then we have the Discover and ACE, and those measure density, speed, polarity, other metrics. They take 2 to 3 days for protons and electrons to actually reach those. Those protons and electrons, they do not travel at the speed of light. They travel at subspeeds, and they typically give us about an hour notice if the aurora is coming. So we use those as like our second line for aurora chasing. So SOHO kind of lets us know we have about 3 days, and we think in 2 to 3 days we're going to have aurora. And the Discover and ACE is like, we're going to know within an hour if that aurora is going to hit or not. So those are our timelines that we look at with those satellites. And then when we're looking at data, we're looking at these different factors. So BT is the strength of the interplanetary magnetic field, and it's measured in a nanotesla. And basically what that's telling us is this is the potential strength of how much we think the aurora could be. BZ measures the polarity of the interplanetary magnetic field. It needs to be negative. Positive, we're not usually going to see aurora. Now, this is one of those times where I can tell you rules are not always the same. So it takes time for the data to actually come to us. So by the time we see the BZ data, we might be getting aurora because we're seeing data that's a little bit older than what we're actually getting in the moment. And I can tell you, I'll find the picture, it's in here somewhere. I was in Gladwin photographing a barn. It was a September, and all of my tools that I used to look at data was telling me that the BZ was positive, and I was looking at Aurora and I was capturing Aurora, and I'm going, I don't know how I'm getting this, but I'm getting it. Well, it's because that data is not like real time all the time. It's a little bit later than what we're actually receiving now. So solar wind speed is something that we look at. Usually that solar wind is around 350 to 400. If it's 500 or more, that's amazing. Solar wind density is usually around 6 parts per cubic centimeter. Hemispheric power is how much energy is in the Earth's magnetic field based on all 4 components as a whole. So you're looking at your BT, your BZ, your solar wind, and your solar wind density. That all together creates your hemispheric power. So, and that's measured in gigawatts. I'm waiting to see if anyone wants to do a doc joke for me right now. No, okay. Auroral oval model, this is one of those tools that you can use to give you a visual representation of the hemispheric power showing 30 minutes in the future. And what this one shows, it'll actually show the auroral oval over top of the Earth. And a lot of people call this the donut. I don't use this. And the reason why is because I've seen it not accurate more often than I've seen it accurate. You'll get that big red donut and it's not correct. Okay, oh, this is my GLAD one that I was just telling you guys about, where the BZ was in the positive, not in the negative. It should have been in the negative, and I was still getting some aurora there. It was in between clouds. I was fighting the clouds, but I still managed to grab just a hint of the aurora there. So some reputable tools and sites, guys. There's not a lot. You can go into your app store or your Google store, Android store, whatever your store is that you use to get all your apps, and you're going to find probably 20, 30 different apps that claim to track aurora for you. Most of them are not great. I used to have them all, and I have tried them all, and some of them are okay, but they're not very accurate for the majority of the time. Glendale is not an app, but it is, you can make it an app on your home screen. It is a computer-based tool that is used specifically for aurora and for showing aurora. That is my #1 tool, is Glendale. It's based out of the UK, and it has been the most accurate tool I have used for aurora predictions. It is based 100% on actual aurora chasers, on the data in real time, and on the accuracy of real chasers and seeing the aurora in images that are being reported. Space weather, the SWIPSI people, that is my #2, and that is also one of the most accurate sites. They do have an app, and it's free. That's not a paid app. You can get that on Apple. You can get that on Android. You can also use their tool online. And then I'm just going to give you a couple of other sites that you can go to and use. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll run through each of these sites for you. If you've not heard of Vincent Ledvina, he is the Aurora guy. He is in like a doctorate, like graduate school in Fairbanks, Alaska. He is amazing. He has been chasing the aurora since he was like 10 years old. And he has so much information for free for anybody who wants it. He also does tours out of Alaska, out of Fairbanks. But he has so much knowledge to share with you. So that's his site on there. Aurorasaurus is one of the groups that does a lot of actual data processing and research. And then the SOHO, which is the NASA site where all of those images came from, that's their site there. And then I did put the Aurora oval on there again, I guess. Okay, so we're on to photographing. I firmly believe failing to plan is planning to fail. 3 Ps: planning, patience, practice. Okay. I am not the best photographer in the world. I'm not the best aurora person in the world. Sometimes I get lucky. Sometimes I plan really hard. That Tridge picture was a picture that I dreamed about for a really long time, and I studied the aurora in my area for a really long time. I watched the data. It should not have happened. Everyone told me that. The Bortle in my area is a Bortle 4. I don't know if you guys know what Bortle is. That's a measurement of the sky's darkness. And a Bortle 4 is not a very dark sky when you're trying to capture stars. And so everything about that area says you should not be able to photograph the Aurora. The Dow Chemical plant with their millions of lights is right there behind me. The downtown city is right there off to my right. I was standing underneath of a street light. There's lights all over the bridge. The town is just to the other side of the trees that were on the other side of the bridge. Everything said it shouldn't happen, and yet it did. So, for me, it's planning. So when you're planning to photograph, and I don't care if it's Aurora, I don't care if it's the Milky Way, I really don't care what it is. If you want to make a very beautiful photograph, you have to plan. So you need to scout your location in advance, especially if you're going out in the dark. That very first photograph I showed you of the Aurora, one of my friends, we had not scouted. We were in Marquette. We went out to a park, and one of my friend's feet went all the way through the lake, and we almost lost him in that lake. It could have been devastating, because we didn't scout in the lake. We didn't know what we were doing. We just were going to see the Aurora. So scout in advance. Make sure that you know exactly where you plan to set your camera, your tripod, your bag, your feet. Have everything set up in the day first so that you know how you're going to set up in the night. Find a dark place that's away from light pollution. Make sure you visit during the daylight hours and compose an image during the day so that you know how to compose that image during the night. Now, if you're photographing Aurora, maybe you're aiming straight up in the sky to get the corona. But if you're like me, which most of you probably are, because I can see all your beautiful images behind you, you are probably going to compose something in the foreground of that image. And you're going to want to practice. You're going to want to know. You're going to want to make sure your rule of thirds is there. You're going to want to have it all figured out. Make sure you have property permission, even if it's public. A lot of public places close when it's dusk. So make sure you have property permission. Take a travel buddy or let somebody know your travel plans. Guys, I cannot tell you how important that is. I have gone out by myself and I've run into a pack of coyotes and had to back myself into my car. I have gone out and run into a bear in the Sleeping Bear sand dunes before. There are times that you just have to make sure that your safety is taken care of. Make sure someone knows where you are. Okay. My husband now tracks me on Life 360. He asks me who will I be with. If I'm not going out with someone else, he's going with me. And I now know that I'm not getting out of my car. I have a sunroof. I will open that and put my camera on the top if I have to and click from inside, because there's too many things in the dark that we cannot see. Time. The season affects the length of night hours that you have. You guys heard Ellen talking earlier about how she would leave for school, and it would be dark, and when she would come back from school, it would be dark. So the season affects how many night hours you have, and how many night hours you have affects whether or not you can see the Aurora. Okay. Know your moon phase, because if the moon is full, it's going to make it harder to see the Aurora. It's going to wash it out. Okay. Understand rotation patterns and cycles of your stars, of your moon. Weather is a huge factor to consider. If it's raining, if there's clouds, I don't care if there's Aurora. If you are not in Alaska, you're not seeing the Aurora. If you're in Alaska, you'll probably still see the Aurora through the clouds. I did. But if you are down here in the lower 48, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Okay, gear. Sturdy tripod, and I mean sturdy. It gets windy at night. You do not want the thing blowing down. Camera body, ideally you want a full frame. You want to understand your camera more than anything in the dark. You need to know how to operate that camera. Where are your buttons? Where are the dials? How do you change your ISO? How do you change your f-stop? How you have to know that camera without turning lights on it, because if you turn a light on, you have messed up your night vision. It is going to be a hard thing for you to deal with. You need to know how to operate your camera in the dark. I always have my clients blindfold themselves and figure it out. And they laugh at me at first, and then they thank me later. Figure out how to work that camera without seeing it. Wide angle lens with wide aperture is ideal. Around, I say 24 millimeter, wider if you can. 12, 14, 10, fisheye. In Alaska, I needed a fisheye. Around an f2.8 is ideal. That Tridge picture, I actually was at a f4, I believe. You need a shutter release cable or an intervalometer. You need a red headlamp. That's for that night vision, so that if you have to turn a light on, you're not going to mess up that night vision. And a hood loop is a good idea. I know a lot of people use the hood loop for when it's really sunny outside. This is great at night too, though, guys. It truly is. And then tools. Okay, these are some tools that I love to use for planning my pictures. Astrospheric is an app that is going to help you with knowing light pollution, what cloud coverage is, where there's smoke, the wildfire smoke. It has the GOES magnetometer, which right now is down, but that it costs $2.99 a month. Photo pills, that helps you plan your captures, calculate, and it'll calculate based on your gear. Like, we'll go through some of that in a minute. You'll understand that. I think it's $9.99 for a lifetime. It might have went up like $1, I heard. I'm not sure. I bought it a long time ago. Explorist, if you don't have this app, you will love it even for not Aurora stuff. And I'm going to go through that one for you in a minute. It's great for image location and planning. And then I use Google Maps a ton to pin places that I know I want to go back and photograph at night for the Aurora or the Milky Way. Okay. All right. If you have not photographed at night before, autofocus does not work in the dark. So there's some options for focusing. Infinity focus, prior to dark, focus on an object near the horizon line or at a distance, tape that focus ring down, and turn it to manual focus. If it's dark, focus on the brightest star manually until pinpoint, or place a light 50 feet away, shine the light at an object 50 feet away for autofocus, then switch it to manual focus. Live view, zoom into a star object and adjust manually until sharp. You can purchase a star sharpening filter. Those usually run around like $80, or you can use hyperfocal distance. Exposing for the night. White balance. You want to set your white balance between 3200 and 4800 Kelvin. I don't use auto white balance, guys, ever. I never do. You don't want to use auto white balance. It's going to be such a pain when you're editing to have something on auto white balance. So set it 3200 to 4800 Kelvin, whatever you set it at in there, leave it. Okay. ISO 3200 to 6400 is typically ideal. I know you have capability to go higher if you need to on most of these new fancy cameras. Aperture wide open, f2.8 to f4. Shutter speed, you can use the 500 rule, the MPF rule, or photo pills to figure that out, your shutter speed. But basically you need to make sure that you're not trailing your stars unless you're intending to trail your stars, right? These are all suggestions for where to start. Once you start here, you'll be able to adjust to where you need to go with your specific camera and equipment. So calculating shutter speed using the 500 rule, I have the different calculations here for you guys. And then I just kind of cheated and gave you guys a chart that tells you your focal length, full frame sensor. And then if you have the crop sensor, Canon is a little bit different than like Nikon is. And then if you have a micro four thirds, I'm going to tell you guys this. I don't math. I don't know how I became a photographer, and I don't math, but I don't. I've never been a math person. I don't like to math, so I don't do this. The MPF rule, it's complex. It takes your sensor resolution into account. It's a whole equation thing. I watched my kid do calculus like at U of M, and I about like had a migraine. So none of that works for me. What I do is I grab photo pills and I put all of my information into photo pills. These are some screenshots of what photo pills looks like on your phone. You can go into photo pills. When you go in there and you put your actual camera information in with your focal length and aperture information, it's going to come in and it's going to tell you this would be what your NPF rule would be. This would be what your 500 rule would be, right? So I know that if I'm at 14 millimeters and f2.8, I'm not going to be higher than 15 seconds when I'm taking a picture, because I don't want my stars to trail unless I want my stars to trail, right? So now you can come over here. This will show you if you want to change your information. You literally can put iPhone information in there. You can put Canon. Like I've had clients cameras in there. So if you've got multiple cameras, you can put many in there and calculate it right on the spot. If you're going to change your focal length, your aperture, you can do it right on the spot. It'll change it for you. It's pretty nifty and swift. So I'm not going to waste time doing math when I know I don't math. This one is the night augmented reality. And this is more for Milky Way. But I've gotten into where I'll go out and I'll plan to photograph Milky Way, but then if the Aurora shows up, I'll just move my camera on and do Aurora. So I thought I'm just going to put this in the presentation for you so you can see it. I don't know how many of you guys use photo pills, but you can actually go out. This is the DH Day Barn and it's in the Sleeping Bear Sand Dunes. I took one of my workshops out there a couple of falls ago, and we lined up how we wanted to actually photograph the DH Day Barn. We kind of figured it out, what night was going to be the best, where was the Milky Way going to be, how did we want to line things up, and then we kind of designed out how we wanted the picture to be, and then we went back and we took it. Not a great picture, but it does show, you know, light pollution. It also shows, oh, I have a puppy again, sorry. It also shows that's not Aurora on the side. That's actually a little bit of I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what that one is, but that's not Aurora. It's air glow. Sorry, air glow on the right, light pollution on the left. Okay, this one is astropspheric. And this is what it looks like on your phone. It can get pretty complicated where you can actually layer all these things. You can see like cloud coverage, the wind speed, the transparency through clouds, what the temperature is. It'll tell you the seeing, like it's saying, yep, it's pretty cloudy here. The dew point, you can see the blues, the yellows, the reds, that's telling us the actual light pollution. So you can see where you can get above light pollution, your yellows and your greens and your reds, that's a lot of light pollution, but your blues and your grays, it's more dark skies. So that helps you kind of figure out where do you want to get to, and you can actually put in your location that you're going to see all that information and move it ahead to see what it's predicted to be. So that's part of why I love the astropspheric. This is Explorist. This is the one that I was telling you guys about that can do the location. So you can actually put in your search bar like this. I put in Milky Way and it pulls up all these different places. And if you're going, okay, wait a minute. Now this one here, Hot Creek and Milky Way, this is way too far for me. I'm not going 1,800 miles away. This is probably closer to you guys. But I might go here, the 109 miles. This is in Traverse City, Michigan. So I could click on that and go, okay, let's check this out. Now, when I go to Traverse City, Michigan, and it says all this information is tucked away into a slight depression, this lake is protected, yada, yada, yada. It tells me all about that. Here is where it's telling me more. Now it'll give me plan, tips, gear. So this is that's an actual picture a photographer took in Traverse City, Michigan. And then it says exactly the information. How do they get there? Tells you exactly how they got there, if they had to walk, if they had to drive, do they actually, in the UP, sometimes you got to climb down a little cliffside. It'll tell you that if you have to climb down a cliffside, if you have to go through water, all the things. When's the best time to go? Tell you the month. It'll tell you the time you need to go, the whole thing. And then it's going to go field tips. And then here's the gear that they used. And then it's going to say locations nearby. Well, what if maybe you want to photograph more than one thing? Okay, well, what else is here? Now it's giving me another place I can check into. So that's what I love about this one. You can actually start your own account and start saving your locations, your pictures as well. But you can save these places so that these are places if you want to go, oh, I love that picture. I would like to go take a picture like that. Now you have a place that you can go to practice, to, you know, see what else is in that area. I talked to you guys about Google Maps. When I'm out driving around, and I love to just drive around, my mother loves to drive around. She likes road trips. So when we're out driving around, I'll just drop a pin somewhere. Sometimes I'll be out driving, I'll see like a tractor in a field. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. Like they'll have a tractor on a pole for some reason. It's Michigan, we're weird. And I'll be like, that's kind of cool. And so I'll just click it and be like, yeah, let's save this place. We're going to come back here sometime, you know, or I'll be like, oh, look there's a beautiful like water, you know, dock here, and it's north facing because you need to face the north for the Aurora. So let's click on this place, let's save this, and then I can put notes in here if I need to come back and talk to the property owner and get permission. I like this barn in this field. I want to come back and photograph this. Me, I love churches, old one-room churches with steeples. There's the church. I'm going to save that one. So then I can go back and I can look at my list of Aurora places and pull up 44 places and be like, okay, where am I going? Where do I want to go to photograph the Aurora this time? So, some additional things to remember. Always use night photography etiquette all the time. You might not see when there's another photographer out in the dark. This happens to me at the Secret Sky Barn all the time. There is a little spot of bushes, and for whatever reason, some photographers like to sit in that bush and take the pictures, and they'll be on an intervalometer and they'll just be clicking away. And I won't know they're there, and I'll set up and I'm in their shot. And sometimes you don't see them. So whenever I go out into a dark spot, I always try to do a call out anyways. Is there anyone else out here before I set up? I try to call out. Does anyone have a camera open? That kind of thing. Use a red headlamp only when needed to navigate to your location, set up your gear or adjust your settings, and then turn it off. Those red lights show up in pictures. You don't want them in your pictures. They're not fun to take out. Do your best to not walk in front of other people's cameras. Use a remote trigger or an intervalometer to prevent camera shake. And if you do not have a remote, set a 3 to 5 second timer. Turn off vibration reduction or image stabilization on your lens. If it is windy, hang your camera bag or a sling with weight to stabilize your tripod. Take a test shot and adjust. Always take a test shot and adjust. Man, it has happened to me that I've been out there and I've just been taking picture after picture. I get out the next day, I throw in my chip into my computer to edit, and I'm like, well, every one of those pictures is junk because I never looked at my test shot. Check your images regularly throughout your adventure. It's windy sometimes at night, and I don't know what happens, but your focus gets knocked out, things happen, and just check your images regularly throughout your adventure and shoot for the stars. Okay, I know I need to stop sharing so that I can go reshare. Let me see. These few things I told you guys I was going to share. Let's do
That was great, by the way, Christina. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I felt like I was talking very quickly, but I know I have a ton of information and it's not even everything for you guys, which I always feel so bad about. It's just the tip. Okay. This is that CME movie that can you guys see this? Is it showing it to you?
No, I
Not
think
yet.
you need to reshare.
I gotta reshare. Oh, I gotta hit share. I didn't hit share. Okay,
There
now
you
is
go.
it showing it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you see the red. I'm gonna reset this and then I'm gonna hit play. This is gonna show you, this is what they do is they take images and they basically time lapse the images. And so this will show you the coronal mass ejections, all of them that happened between May 3rd and I think May 8th is what I picked. I might have picked May 9th, but that was one right there. Every time you see that little halo, and I'll stop when one happens, but that was the big one. Did you guys see that right there? Right there. So that was the big one that happened there on May 5th. And there was another one off here. And you can tell this is all energy, this huge bright spot off to the top left. That's all energy. Flares have been flying from that spot and then this other spot down there. But you'll just see, it's almost like just little bursts are coming out. And when you see that ring come away, those are coronal mass ejections that are coming, those halos that are shooting out. Okay. Some of the satellites are down right now. So Discover is down. Some of the NOAA stuff is not working. So Discover is down. They're running the ACE space weather. And if you guys ever want to learn more, let me know. But we actually, a lot of us that in Michigan, we have a huge group of us that we are chatting with each other all day, every day, all night, every night. And we are watching the real-time solar wind here. And so we watch all this data, and this is something right here, and this is something right here. We're watching all this data to see what's happening with the electrons and the protons in the magnetic field, and so that we can see when is aurora going to happen. And this is a little more complicated to read than the other data that I showed you, and then some of those other tools. But this is kind of a more advanced. And if anyone wants to get more advanced, let me know. We won't do it here, but let me know and we'll connect somewhere else. But this is one of those tools, is the ACE. Glendale. This is that Glendale app I was talking to you guys about. It looks a little different on your phone, but this is what I love about it, okay? So, and this one's saying it needs my location right now. Okay, right now. Aurora is likely in Canada and the border states at the moment. The next period of minor activity should start around 2030 and peak around 2210. And this is in Eastern time because I'm Eastern time. And its weak activity is likely in the next few hours. So that gives you kind of your little quick description. The latest alert is 11 minutes. You never have to refresh this. It automatically refreshes itself continuously. These are your live reports. And if we come over here, so there's different phases of aurora. This is telling me that the substorm is an expansion, which means it's growing. So there are different levels of your aurora in terms of you can have substorms that are happening continuously with that solar wind. And then you can have geomagnetic storms. And those are the ones that we've been talking about, where we're getting all of that solar activity that's flying to the earth. But your substorms are kind of more your little auroras that happen. When we see this arrow go, it kind of goes down, and this number, it grows into the negative. So like this is a decent, for my latitude, which I'm at 43.6, this is decent. I could see aurora tonight if I have clear skies. If this goes even further negative, I'm outside for sure. If I'm negative 800, I'm outside. If I'm negative 1,000, negative 1,400, you bet I'm outside, unless there's clouds. So this is what I mean by the down. This is your expansion, and you want to see this go down for that growth. So, and this is the phase: growth, expansion, recovery. Okay. And this is your interplanetary magnetic field. So this is where we talked about your BT, your BZ. And then this is really cool, okay? So over here, this is where I was talking about, this is, a lot of it is based off of actual chasers and users. And all of these people with stars, these are people who use regularly, and they are considered to be highly knowledgeable, highly respected, and you can count on these people. And they're telling you they're not seeing anything. They're not seeing anything. They have clouds. There's no aurora. They're not seeing anything. Okay. And so that's one of the biggest things, honestly, is if you get a live sighting, that's huge. That's huge. And they're actually showing us, I'm not getting anything. Now, this person right here, this person has, this is not aurora, and this is often mistaken as aurora. But this is your, my brain doesn't want to work on this one, and I already did this one tonight. This is your,
You talking about air glow?
thank you. This is your air glow. And there's it, and you can see a little bit of air glow in this one as well. A lot of people that are new chasers will think air glow is aurora, and it's not. But it has that kind of look. The other thing people will confuse is grow houses. They confuse grow houses as aurora because it has this big purple or pink coloring in it, but it's like a blob, and that's not aurora either. Here's the cool part about this you can actually click on, if you want to learn more, the solar wind, and it's going to show you all this, but it'll explain to you more about solar wind. So this is another reason I love to tell my people use Glendale, because it's going to explain more to you. Okay. Same thing with coronal mass ejections. Okay. So it's going to tell you when was the last CME. Okay. So on the 10th, we had a CME. They're saying it's not Earth directed. Now this will be the one thing that I'll say I've seen inaccurate. It'll say not Earth directed and we'll still end up with some activity. Long range forecast. I don't typically look at long range forecasts. They're based off of coronal holes and they're not typically accurate. And then you can actually change your location. I don't have mine set on my computer. I have it set on my phone. But you can change your location and it'll save your detail and your history. So if you shout out here that you saw Aurora, it's going to save how many times did you see Aurora? Where did you see Aurora? What time did you see Aurora? And I don't know if you guys realize this, but there is a sweet time for Aurora and it's typically between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that's the sweet time. Space weather, this is what their website looks like. They do have an app that you can put on your phone, but then you can also learn a little bit here on their information, and then you can see these are the SOHO images that we had gone over, and then these are the ACE like EPAM. And then this is that auroral oval model that we talked about, the donut. So, and you can tell like by where the green is, Michigan's not getting anything. So, yep. And then this is Vincent Lidvina. And I'm going to tell you guys, this is a gold mine of information for you. So much free information here. You're going to come here and see all this stuff that he wants you to buy that you don't have to. And if you go up here to, you could go to resources, or you could just go to the search bar and say you wanted to learn about CMEs, type in CME, and it's going to show you, he's got all these blog posts on CMEs and he's very good at writing. This one will teach you about the Huxt model, and he'll go through, he'll literally tell you what is a CME, tracking CME. So if you're a nerd like me, then this is where I learned a lot of my information, was right from Vincent. And then here's your Aurorasaurus. And you can go through and same thing, tell them, did you see it? Did you not? There's different research that you can participate. They actually will go through and teach you a lot of things. Does anybody here know what creates the colors for Aurora? It has to do with two different things. One of them is the elevation, the latitude that you're at, and then it has to do with the gases that the protons mix with. So when the protons and electrons come into our atmosphere, they're basically they're intermixing with different gases that are in our atmosphere. So based off of what that gas is they intermix with determines that color. So here in Michigan, a lot of times we get it's two colors we'll get, and it jumps between two different colors. So sometimes it's green and either a pinkish or a purplish color, almost like a magenta. And then other times it's red and like a yellow color. I think the yellow is supposed to be greenish, but it ends up being yellow. So it's kind of red and yellow. So, and we got both mixes of those two during that May storm. The earlier nights we had the red and the yellows, and then the later nights we had the green and like the magenta color. So when I was in Alaska, we had a literal rainbow. The aurora looked like a rainbow, and it was multiple, more than two. So so I think that was all of the things I had there. And I know I didn't leave you guys time for questions, but I will stay for questions as long as you want. So let me stop sharing.